Britain transplants her institutions and functionaries with her flag. The mayor of Nairobi, in familiar garb, distributes Jubilee medals. And when the acting governor opens the new law courts, wig and judges' robes uphold the dignity of the occasion, and the Chief Justice makes a suitable oration. The garden party at Government House is the social event of the celebrations, which exhibit a characteristic temper of intense loyalty.
Happy Jamhuri Day 2024. This is KTN. We have been in existence for quite some time as well. Talk about the Bull newspaper, 1962 all the way to today, still standing and still bold. My name is Anki Doris Mbat, and I just want to welcome you all to this particular coverage, and I also want to essentially tell you that I have some very key voices in studio. We're going down the memory lane today. For those who did not see how it was back then, are curious to understand what happened during the colonial period, how things evolved, this is the show for you today. It's not just a matter of entertainment. We are also anticipating then the speech of President William Ruto, the events and how they're going to turn out today. We have our reporters on location already. They'll join us shortly from all over the country to let us know what is unveiled, what is happening, and of course, just to give you your feedback on our social media platforms. We're on YouTube. Our live stream is up and running. Also on Facebook, you can find us on X at KTN, at Anki Doris, rather Doris Anki on X. We have a number of stories that have been compiled, but before I do give you a story on the preparations, allow me to appreciate my guests who are here way earlier. In fact, gentlemen, I'm very, very impressed. I am also very challenged. Dr. Shem Ochuodo is a global chairman of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. If you did not know, he is the man who brought internet, you know, to Kenya. You opened, us up to the world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Doris Anki. Happy Jamhuri Day to Mashujas and Patriots. Happy to be here. Thanks for hosting us. You started with the Mashuja and Patriots. You know, Kenyans are struggling with Madaraka Day and Jamhuri Day. Okay, yes. Which one is it? Is it the 60th? Is it the 61st? We're very glad that you have started with the Mashujas and Patriots so that they understand then how that relates. I also want to appreciate Joseph Kaguthi. All right, EBS. He's a former provincial commissioner, Nyanza, Nairobi. He has worked even under the colonial masters. He has so much institutional knowledge. If I was to read everything he has done, he was also the, I believe, the national chair for Nyumba Kumi. I don't know how far that went, but it's good to see you on this show today. Habari asubuhi. Welcome to the broadcast.
Wananchi watukufu wa Mjaboni. Sorry, hata mimi niko salama. Na niko tayari kusherehekea pamoja na wewe. Na kama hujui historia yako, naomba ujihadhari sana. Utaulizwa maswali wakati mimi na Honorable Ochuodo will not be there.
Yes.
Na utashindwa kujibu mambo ya taifa yako. Kwa hivyo ni mzuri kusikiliza, ni kuuliza maswali, mzuri kuuliza vijiji ya Mau ilikuwa kwa nini? Kwa nini iliwekwa namna hiyo? Unauliza kwa nini mimi nilizaliwa kwa citizen wa himaya ya Uingereza. Nilizaliwa si Mkenya.
All right.
Himaya.
And you can see that he's challenging me with this Kiswahili today.
And why is it that Kenya was a colony and a protectorate until hiyo Jamhuri Day hiyo ikaachwa ikaitwa Republic of Kenya. Kwa nini? What was going on?
Exactly.
What were our rights as Africans? What are our limitations? Na ni kwa nini ilikuwa namna hiyo?
All right.
Why is it that those who are there that time they were so jubilant, they loved the country, and why is it that wakati mwingine tuyayuba kujiita wa Kenya? Kwa nini?
In fact.
Why is it?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, even as you're speaking, I know that Kenyans on social media are going to be speaking to us. Wengine wanajivunia kwa Kenya, wengine wanasema wanavumilia kwa wa Kenya.
I tell you,
I don't know what Shem thinks.
That ignorance is very, we got to try to squeeze it out in occasions like this one.
Right.
You call it ignorance?
Because, oh yes, it's ignorance. As late as the time I'm coming to OP from the field as a DO.
All right.
The whole of this area yote mpaka kwa railway ilikuwa empty. Hii kina place view yote hata standard pahali tuko hapa. Lami Mombasa ilikuwa ardhi tupu.
All right.
Mchanga tupu. Na useme hakuna maendeleo imefanyika. Barabara hizi zote Mombasa to Nairobi mchanga. Kisumu mchanga tupu.
So no tarmac roads, the infrastructure.
Wapi.
Let me hear from Shem. Shem, because I want to take the stories on how the preparations happened. But internet, technology, digitally, I mean, look at us. Look at how beautiful this studio is. We can reach millions of people this morning on our broadcast. How does that make you feel? Have we made strides to our advantage?
Yes, Dorisanki. As we celebrate our 60 years of independence, and we're very proud of it. Of course, my senior, the PC, understands and knows it much better because he lived it. Some of us came into being when the struggles were well underway. So, or maybe independence came, we were still too young, we're toddlers, so we may not have known much of what transpired. But we owe it to our forefathers and foremothers who made it possible, the Mau Mau team, and others who helped in kind. And even those who provided those who were in the forests with food and so on. So we owe it to them. It didn't come easy. But having said that, Doris, now that you're talking of the tech world, we are talking about technology now. We're also celebrating 30 years of internet, not just in Kenya, but sub-Saharan Africa. So internet got into sub-Saharan Africa through Kenya. So 30 years of technology and 60 years of freedom. I fully agree with Bwana PC. You know, sometimes you often ignore or neglect the little that we have. As a Christian, we talk of counting your blessings.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are also told that, you know, before you've traveled, you think your mother is the best cook. So there are other countries which have done much better, like places like Singapore, Korea.
South Korea?
Yes, South Korea. Places that 60 years ago, or so 50 years, 40 years ago, we were giving grants to, we were supporting them. I remember being told by a former cabinet minister that, you know, in my office there was a little document of $4 million grant Kenya gave to this other country. But they have come a long way. But we have also come a long way, but we could have done much better.
We could have done much better. Yes. You know, I'm looking at Joseph's expression. And in one of the interviews, you mentioned that Kenyans are quick, you know, to sing the national anthem. They're impatient to finish the three verses. What do you mean by that? You talked about nationhood.
Yes.
But our anthem says, "O God of all creation, bless this our land." A nation, which means we are confident we have a nation. At this point in time, Joseph, with all you have seen, have we already achieved nationhood to this date?
No, and
No.
I'm sorry, because I don't hide. I was so happy with the BBI.
All right.
Because of Article 4.
Article 4, okay.
Unfortunately, I saw even some professionals who had not read that constitution, that draft. Because Article 4 was one which was to introduce nationhood. Go back to it. Nationhood.
Is that
because
the
this country, we do not have profits coming.
Yes.
When I look at it in the constitution, I don't see clearly defined nationhood in our constitution. No, it's not in the law. I can't see it even in the policies of this country. I don't see it. nationhood building. We do not have a definition of duties and responsibilities of citizens. We have it, though, in the last stanza of our national anthem, where it says, Kenya istahili heshima. Hiyo peke yake ni Kenya istahili, tuungane pamoja.
Yes.
Now, the minute you do not reach there, at what stage will the citizen be defending the country? I see us cannibalizing our own country, even the image of the country. So, and you know, that particular Article 4 had that definition, and they had laws that they had drafted in that bill, that BBI, which would have started implementing. Even this one of wananchi watukufu, you know, the Article 2.
All right.
It was basically on that.
No, it's very interesting that what you has brought now to the conversation. A number of Kenyans would criticize this particular document's flow with what the crowd thinks, especially with the internet. But today is the Jamhuri Day. This is the 61st Jamhuri Day that Kenya is celebrating, and it's pretty much what it is, you know, independence. But I also want you to talk to us. Do you feel it? We spoke to a number of Kenyans yesterday. I mean, how do they feel about this day? But even before I get to that, let me just share this story on the preparation so that we will keep them in check on how it unfolds. Now, it's all systems go for the 61st Jamhuri Day celebrations that will be held today at the Uhuru Gardens. And as Ashley Mazuri reports, Gambian President Adama Barrow is expected to attend as a chief guest among other regional leaders. Let's take a look.
From the main dais to the seats to the entertainment department. Everything is set for the 60th Jamhuri Day celebrations to be presided over by President William Ruto, and the first national celebration for Professor Kithure Kindiki as Deputy President.
From independence to now, Kenya has made milestones in many other fields.
Security in and out of Uhuru Gardens has been beefed up as Kenyans are expected to attend the event marking Kenya becoming a republic in 1964.
The celebrations will be held at Uhuru Gardens. We will start very early. We are calling upon Nairobians to be there as early as 6 a.m. when we start receiving guests.
President William Ruto is expected to address a number of issues: the IEBC reconstitution stalemate and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's AUC chairmanship quest ahead of the big debate on Friday. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta might be in attendance after President William Ruto visited him in Ishaweri, Gatundu on Monday. As is the norm every Jamhuri Day celebrations, the trooping of the color of the Kenya Defence Forces will equally take place. Ashley Mazuri, KTN.
All right, so that is Ashley Mazuri's report yesterday, of course, just showing you that all systems, go for today's celebration. But it's a very good energy in studio today. You know, it's relaxed, but I really have institutional memory in this particular set today. And I want to appreciate Professor Peter Kagwanja, who has just joined us. I mean, what you do for Africa as the chief executive officer of that particular institution is very critical even in this conversation. You know, severally, I've had Joseph saying, Professor is coming, so that he talks about policy, evolution in this country. And he is a scholar. So it's really good to have you. Happy Jamhuri Day 2024. But is it really happy? I would say that for myself. Do you feel the same way, Professor?
Yes. First and foremost, Kenya is my age mate.
Is it?
Yeah.
So is it 60 or 61?
Kenya is my age mate. If you take our independence to begin at Mandaraka, which is June, then Kenya is older than, Kenya is younger than me. If you take it to be Jamhuri today,
then Kenya is slightly older than me by 4 months. So, I mean, I cannot be happy about myself and not be happy about Kenya. So the two are intertwined. And if you want to know that Kenya has succeeded, look at me.
Okay.
Because this is it. If Kenya has succeeded, look at me.
Is it?
Yeah. It's evidence, because I was born here. I was born in independent Kenya and have grown up in independent Kenya, and I am here today. So what else do you need to show, to celebrate Kenya? And I am a father of millennials and Gen Zs, and hopefully alphas and betas. Okay?
Okay.
So meaning there is a past, there is present, and there is future.
Correct.
Despite all our pessimism and all these negative energies we have, Kenya is still work in progress. Let's not deceive ourselves. It's still work in progress. But as work in progress, we still can take stock of what we have done. I was listening to Mheshimiwa Waziri speaking about his own experience, and the truth of the matter is we could have done better. We have not done what we needed to do to the utmost. We can do that.
All right.
Yes.
Now, when you're talking about, you know, if we want to know how Kenya is doing, we should look at you. I don't know how many people watching this morning agree with that. They will be talking to us on YouTube, because it is in this same country, just, is it last year or this year, we saw an interesting demography come out to call out leadership. In fact, a lot of political analysis, you know, brought out that new aspect of how things are going to turn around in the next elections. It was a whole world global conversation, how Kenyans are boldly calling out their leadership. You really think this is a happy nation? Do you still stand by your point that we are work in progress and we're doing okay? We're work in progress, but how would you rate it? How would you rank how Kenya is doing?
I've just come from Chad.
Oh, yes.
Where I spent the last week. Chad is in the heart of Sahara Desert, and it's neighboring quite a number of other countries. And as I was going there, I passed through Egypt. I passed through Ethiopia. And I have traveled in this country, on this continent, I can say now, about 47 out of the 54 countries. I keep on ticking. Chad was the 47th.
Okay.
I have lived in South Africa for 10 years, which is perhaps to be the symbol of what, progress mean to the continent. It's the only country in the BRICS. It's the only country in the G20. So I know it in and out. I can tell you, the moment you step out of our Jomo Kenyatta International, airport, then you begin to perceive Kenya differently. It is when we come in, when we imbibe this negative energy. Because comparatively, many people think that we are really jokers, because the kind of things we do, they cannot try because it would collapse in the morning. I think we need to appreciate the air of democracy which we have in this country. And that's why the young people, the Gen Z, are taking President Ruto to account. That's why other generations have the capacity to take. There are other generations which would want it, but they're only doing it through coups, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and others. The younger generation can only express themselves through the gun. Ours can express themselves in the streets. That's how you measure progress, that there is some freedom.
All right.
I mean, it is not good to compare yourself with your poor neighbor and say you are doing better. I don't think that's a very logical way of looking at things. But comparatively, across the world, not only in Africa, across the world, go to Latin America, go to Asia, compare us with the others in terms of the progress we have made.
Yes.
At least it's appreciable. I would say I am proud of Kenya, but I'm not proud of how our power elite have performed. We should have performed better.
All right. Now, you've spoken about, and I want to come back to Joseph, but there's a question that Joseph brought up, and professors said that Kenyans have a way of expressing themselves. We saw the Gen Zs have cell phones, take selfies. We saw the president come to an X space. It was all over the world. That was very, very interesting how the president actually joined the X space to talk to Kenyans about national issues. You know, news would spread like wildfire, but that also comes with misinformation. So Joseph said, I should probably interrogate how things were before you introduce us to this world of internet.
Show off your best skin with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion. Now with 5-in-1 complete care.
From what was previously called the dark continent in the real sense of the word to where we are today, and we still have a long way to go. I recall the days when, even before mobile phones, let's say even before internet, people had to go to telephone booths, queue, sometimes you don't find them working. You find sometimes the wires are cut or hung, or sometimes they're there, but the wire is there, but to get what we call the dial tone, before you actually make the call, you'd take a while. So we've come a long way. So people would dial numbers, and then you get out. But there were also instances when you would have to go to the post office prior to that. And then the postmaster or the person in charge of the telephone operator.
I'm sorry to interject because I want everybody to hear you. I'm signaled that we have to probably check your sound, but even as we do so, I'm enjoying this conversation. For everyone who is either my age, younger, or just, you know, somewhere there in between, to not miss this conversation. Wake up a brother, wake up a sister, just before we get to Uhuru Gardens, and grab some knowledge for yourself. But I also want to appreciate the team that got to, of course, interact with Kenyans yesterday, asking them how they felt about the Jamhuri Day 2024. Is it worth it? Are they excited about it? Is there anything to celebrate whatsoever? And this is what a few Kenyans had to say. Let's listen in.
Mimi kama Kenyans na feel bado sijapata uhuru, manake viongozi wanavyotuahidi hawarengi venye wanatuahidi. Hasa wa vijana hatuna kazi, kama ni wanasiasa wanatuahidi na wafanyi na wazi, ni kuomba watie maanani wanavyosema, hasa wakitia jitihada pamoja na kanisa, na hivyo tutaweza kusonga mbele pamoja.
Kwa rais, sasa hivi waachane na habari ya siasa, wawahudumie wananchi. Siku ya uhuru wahudumie wananchi, waweke wananchi mbele, waachane na habari ya siasa. Ikifika wakati wa siasa tutafanya siasa, lakini sasa hivi kwanza wananchi wahudumiwe.
Uhuru bado juu inabidi tu mtu ajikaze tu, na hadi mtu akijikaza tu bado hata chenye unapata mashimo ni nyingi za kuweka hiyo do. Unaona? Sasa uhuru bado uhuru tu yenye tunaweza sema ni kutoka kwa mzungu, lakini kimfuko hatuna uhuru. Hata ukipata do alafu tena unavurugo huku, unavurugo na tax, unavurugo na gava pia. Unaona hiyo kitu hata haiwezi kaa kwa mfuko. Sasa mimi naambia tu rais aambie tu watu wake waache tu vijana wafanye kazi.
Now that's pretty much it. We couldn't meet all those Kenyans, but I want to hear from Joseph. Shem, I will come back to you shortly. But you've heard what those Kenyans have said, and you've also seen the age group that is speaking. And so, one of them has said, "Not yet Uhuru. How are you Uhuru?" In fact, he has said that the leaders should serve Kenyans. So he's not satisfied with what he's seeing today. What would be your reactions to those sentiments that we just played?
You know, I miss something called public barazas. In Karachunyu, where he was honorable member of parliament.
Yes.
Supposing we are in Kendubi, and mwananchi analia namna hiyo. And Makio, one time I had a more serious issue than they are saying, where I came to a baraza in Kendubi, and then mama mmoja akasema ako na prescription ya dawa, lakini akamba basi haikuleta pesa kutoka na mtoto yake kutoka ambaye alikuwa anakaa Mombasa. And I feel so bad. And when I told the president, he ordered dawa ziletwe. Meaning, you access to people like that because it's not fiction. It's not, people's problems are not fiction, they are real. But what you do, they are looking at the country from a micro where they are. Just imagine in Nairobi about tunao sasa, at independence, wakati tunapata Jamhuri. How many were we? 360,000, 61,000. Half the population of Nyandarua. Nairobi hii, city hii. Tulikuwa na antelopes here. Hii from here to Makadara. Now look at all this Mombasa Road, look at both sides. All this was ilikuwa empty. Kwa hivyo yule anaongea mambo ya contemporary wakati huu kwa tatizo ambazo ako nazo. Yes. Yeye is younger than than the 60-year-old here. But he doesn't, hawezi kuiona in a bigger manner the way it should be. You feel the country is admired by other countries, but and it is so good to live here, where a citizen is able to talk the way they are talking. As I was starting to work, there were no telephones. What did we have? One wire. Wire. Yes, that's what I wanted Shem to explain.
Please explain it to us.
Yes. You know, there were wires crisscrossing between this town to the other town, or this village to the other village. A wire. And therefore, anybody who is hooking at this wire, this is number 10, wire hii ni 10. So you see 10Y1, the professor. 10Y2, Joseph Kagodi. 10Y3, and kro, unasikia hiyo sauti ni yako. Can you imagine? And you say we have gone very, very far. The world is moving. Let's continue putting more and more pressure to the citizens. Is it Mzee Kibaki who said, continue telling the government, continue saying it, continue making those demands like the one they are making here. Yes. But for the leaders, tolerate, listen to them. I get very angry wakati mwingine. When the president starts talking, look at it. How many of his leaders will be having notebooks to take note of what they are going to implement? They have left the whole country. I don't know, Prof, what happened. During my time, an assistant chief would stand in a baraza and say, when we are not there, serikali haitaitikia kufanya namna hii. This time you don't get it because the government ilianza wakati wa Ruto. Sasa ni Ruto. The president is not just the government is teamwork.
All right.
But he has now converted it like a kiosk. He is being beaten by everybody on everything, and I feel sorry for him. Just look at the children wa Mzee Ruto. You feel it. I never allowed my president to be attacked. He was my MP. We were together. And he knew if there was a very major attack, and I feel the government has offended the citizens, I'll go there. And I know you do not see the regional commissioners now. You will see me talking and listening with my swagger stick here. Hata wamkafanya namna hiyo, hata hiyo. Then you feel the government coming closer to them.
All right.
This time, tunasikiliza huko tu. And therefore, that's why the complaint is so heavy. And Shem Wachwado here, na his internet, na nini, iko mingi.
Sanki.
Yes.
Maybe to be a bit fairer to the Kenyans, the economic situation is tough. It's not unusual to come across people asking, please, I just need 100 bob or 50 bob, sometimes 20 bob.
Yes.
And you get to wonder, what would somebody do with the 20 bob? So the economic situation, I think we all agreed that Kenya has made progress and great strides over the 60 or so years that we have been independent. But we also equally all agreed around this panel that maybe we could have done a little better, and we are still making progress. But there's no denying that we are a pinnacle of stability in the region. I mean, many countries would want to be like Kenya, not just in Africa, but even elsewhere. we just ended, we had our 11th annual Kenya Diaspora Homecoming Convention, where we had a number of African Americans, Caribbeans, of course Kenyans too, in the diaspora coming back home. And I remember leading, and we were honored to have the footprints of Marcus Garvey. There's probably, Professor Kagwanja may know better, but there's probably no greater Pan-Africanist than Marcus Garvey. Because he mentored the big names we know, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Martin Luther Kings, the Tom Mboyas, the Jomo Kenyattas, the Nyereres, the Nassas, the Samora Machels. So he did mentor. So to that extent, we were privileged. His son, 90-year-old son, Dr. Julius Garvey, surgeon and medical professor at the University of West Indies in Jamaica. So we had this American businessman who was part of that team and telling us that, look, there was a time that they were paying their bills. And in the US, they still use cards and checks. And then people are wondering, everybody here is not carrying cash because we have M-Pesa, you know.
The mobile money.
And there are still even Americans who still can't understand how can you use the mobile, the phone, to make payments. I mean, that's an innovation. For once, Africa was giving technology to the world. But if you permitted me to go back to where we were, what the PC was talking about, those old days of people queuing up to make calls, I remember the worst cases that I had. I may not have been as privileged as professor to 47 countries, but I've done 44. So I'm really racist. I'm very close.
Yes.
Having done that, two experiences that I had, one was in Arusha, Tanzania, where we assisted them to get on the internet, and also Lagos, Nigeria. And I keep saying, if it can work in Lagos, Nigeria, it probably will work anywhere else in the continent. It would take us about 5 minutes just to get a dial, wait for a dial tone. And once you get a dial tone, it would take about 15 minutes to connect outside, because that's how we would connect to the internet. Even for Kenya, when we initially started, we were connecting to an organization called Green at London, and we would poll all emails coming to Kenya every Wednesday night. So we were like a post box. This was one of my bedrooms. So messages would come through, and then people would dial in, even the UN agencies around at that time, and government institutions, and the private sector, including the banks and so on. Including Central Bank, which was one of our very good clients, I must say. Meka Cheserem did fantastic work. And then pick messages once a week and then drop them back, and then we send them out once a week. So we've come that way. We moved from once a week to 3 times a week to once daily to every hour until we got to live where we are now. But even then, the quality was still really slow. To download a picture, we have gotten to a stage where we were at Jacaranda Hotel. Mzee Njenga Karume did a fantastic job. And the connection that we were getting, like yesterday, we had people from all over. Professor Washington Ochieng was talking to us from London. He's reputed to have been involved in sorting out transport in London. And we had many others from across the world. And it was like they were right in Nairobi with us. So we've come a long way. In fact, to the extent that sometimes we have better connection than what you get from what we call the Apple City, New York.
And I just want us to just hold it there for a while, because even as we're speaking and bringing more insight into it, I know that we will want to look at policy as well. Because that as well needs to work. Where there's governance, where there's democracy, where there are systems, policies, and policies written. You've heard people saying, oh, we have very good policies, some of the best, but they're working for Rwanda, they're working for other countries, but not Kenya. It's interesting. I'll hear from Professor shortly. Let's take a look at what's happening in different parts of the country. Remember, Jamhuri Day celebrations happen across the country, except we have the official, gathering at Uhuru Gardens in Nairobi. I'm joined by my colleague, Dennis Aseto, looking very good this morning. I see the weather is favorable. How are you? And what is the atmosphere? You're right at the entrance of Uhuru Gardens. Aseto.
Good morning to you, Anki Doris. We're coming to you live from the Uhuru Gardens, which is the epicenter for the Jamhuri Day celebrations. Let me just make it clear, the 61st Jamhuri Day celebrations in the country, where in a few minutes President William Ruto will be making his way to this venue, and the very first Jamhuri Day celebrations for Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki as well, who will be accompanying the president here. But as we speak right now, the weather is cooperating. It's a little bit chilly, but that notwithstanding, Kenyans are trooping in droves as they get ready to celebrate and be part of these exercises. Remember that today's Jamhuri Day celebrations is premised on matters to do with job creation and exportation of labor and entertainment, which we expect the president and other leaders to speak to. But even as we speak right now, if I could just show you, behind me is matters to do with security, and security has been heightened in these premises right now. You enter, you're screened by the security. Before you actually leave to get to the diocese where Kenyans are going to sit, you're again screened the second time and taken through various points in this venue where they will be sitting. And as you can see, Kenyans are trooping in droves, ready to be part of these exercises as we get ready in making sure that whatever the president.
All right, we lost a seto there, but I'm sure we will find him. He'll be back shortly to just continue telling us what is happening. What we have seen for sure is that we've seen children, very excited, as we, of course, expected the mood to be. Kenyans have made their way into the Uhuru Gardens. As always, we see that happen. They come in very, very early. So that's a culture that has not really, entirely faded off, no matter how bad, some would say that the things are moving. And I know I cut you short earlier on, Shem, but if I could just pick it quickly with, Professor Kagwanja. Aseto has mentioned something that Kenyans are expecting the president to speak more on the job creation, employment, and the export of labor. And when you hear such things, you do realize that a number of youth graduate. They spend money going to school, but they hardly have jobs to either pay back their help loans or even take care of themselves. We've seen the president big on exporting labor. He's been accused, and his government as well, of not taking it seriously. The policies that protect or laws that protect these Kenyans when they are sent out there to work. I know the remittances are very important. We have, the diaspora represented here, but maybe you need to speak on the evolution of employment in this country. You said we're not doing very badly off. And like you said, you have almost every generation around you in circles. So when you look at how they are and the economic capacity, what would you say, and what do you expect the president to then say in regards to job creation, employment, and export of labor today?
Let me start with why there is this kind of restiveness or lack of what you call some confidence in the government, in the country, and possibly why some of the young people would be justified to say that not yet Uhuru. The way the first generation of ribalators came back and said no, not yet Uhuru. That's the title of Jaramogi Odinga's book. Now, when you say not yet, it means that there is something that would be done better and which is not being done. We have not done extremely well in terms of learning the economy. And that the reason is very simple, that we have an elite that is not harnessed to the specific goals. Every country sets its own goals. And the founding fathers of this country and the founding mothers of this country came up with only 3 goals that we must achieve in our lifetime. Goal number 1 is to deal with poverty. Not alleviation, not reducing, eradication. And it is possible. Countries like China have done that. 2, we deal with ignorance. And 3, we deal with the disease.
Right.
That's it. So what does that translate to in policy terms? It translates to build the best education system that humanity can afford. That's all. You deal with ignorance. 2, deal with issues of hospitals. Build a medical system like no other. And 3, have a flexible, pragmatic approach to the economy, because you are not in isolation. The world has all models. Look at what works and work with it. That's essentially what we inherited. What are we doing? We are all over. Oh, housing, oh, this, oh, that, oh, that. We are all over. And 2, we are now emphasizing on exchange and transactions at the expense of production. An economy is about production, not consumption. You consume what you produce. Now here, among the richest Kenyans, you find are those who are in transactional businesses. You can mention them. No wonder our most successful industries are communication and finance. And now we are bringing in oil. And mark you, our oil in the north is not yet, has not yet hit our market in a serious way, if at all. So what are we saying? We have our priorities wrong. So when our young people say we have our priorities wrong, they mean it. Let me come to the question you asked about employment abroad.
Yes.
Again, on that one, and I would want to say it boldly here, without fear or favor. We are working on our heads. You don't look at the external market as a rescue. You look at it as an overflow. When you have extra labor, you have consumed everything, and your industry has consumed everything. You have done the best you can, then you look at the external. By the time Kibaki came to power in 2000, and Waziri served him, he came to us abroad. I am one of the examples. I was working in South Africa, comfortably, employed, because I thought that's the only way to do. Adam Zemoy, towards the final days, were not doing well economically at all. So most of us young people went to exile to look for opportunities, not sent by the government, but seeking opportunities for ourselves. I went to New York, I couldn't find good life. I went to London, couldn't find good life. I settled in South Africa, according to what good life is for me.
Yes, I was going to ask, what is good life?
Good life is what you are satisfied with. Maybe you want good life without children. Stay in New York. You want good life where you just hang around and all that, go to London. But if you want to make a family and whatever, look for a place in Africa. South Africa, Senegal, Addis Ababa, those who identified those days as some of the places you can go to, Cairo, and so on. So what is the point? We cannot emphasize job creation abroad at the expense of job creations at home. We need to expand means of production. And when we are producing, then we expand the industries. If you produce something, it means you have started what they call the forward and backward linkages of economy. Because you have to employ people to harvest, you employ people to process, you employ people to take to the market, you employ people to, by the time it gets to the consumer, everybody has something to do. Now we are focusing on the consumer. Jobs, creation in abroad, all this. No, let's get to the basics of the economy.
All right. Saying we have our priorities wrong. I know Joseph wants to say something, but if you allow me. Okay. How many seconds do you need before I go back to Dennis Aseto? All right. So we'll go to Dennis Aseto, and then I come back to, Joseph and Shem, just to add on that, because last year during the Jamhuri Day celebrations, President William Ruto, of course, shared with the entire country that the World Bank had ranked Kenya 29th fastest growing economy in as far as the world is concerned. And I don't know where we are at today, but Aseto, if you're following as well, Professor has said, in as far as job creation and of course exporting labor, we're getting our priorities wrong. What else are we expecting today? I mean, you stated earlier on that perhaps Kenyans expecting the president would speak to this particular matter. It's good to have you back, Aseto, right at the Uhuru Gardens.
And yes, indeed, Anki, you've rightfully addressed matters to do with unemployment in the country, which is a concern. Every other government that comes in place talks about addressing the unemployment crisis in the country. And today, Jamhuri Day celebrations is themed around employment, the labor market, and exporting the same. We know the conversations that have happened in the country, and we expect that today Kenyans expect that the president will come out clear on his plan when it comes to matters to do with employment and even export of the same. And as you can see, Kenyans are trooping in